So remember, guys, that the TVM solver is a tool to ask a lot of what if questions. That's basically what you want it there for. You want to say, what if I do this, what if I do that, and you can actually explore and actually know exactly what your options and outcomes are. Okay, so let's do this one on 37. Leonard opens up a TFSA account, that's a savings account, and deposits $10,000 in it. Okay, so we're putting in a large sum. Okay, that is what? That's present value, right? That's present value. The interest rate offered for at the bank is 2.58%, compounded monthly. He wonders how long in years it will take for him to save $15,000 to buy the Subaru Impreza that he's wanting, right? So he wants to have $15,000 in the future. Right now, I'm just going to ask you, determine as many of the TVM solver numbers as you can, right? Then we're going to figure out which one is missing, and so we're going to solve for the one that's missing. So let's enter this: N, I, PV, PMT, future value, PY, CY. Make sure I'm not mentioning this enough, but make sure your calculator is set to end at the bottom of your TVM. You don't have to tell me that, but you just have to make sure that if you don't, you'll lose marks. Your answers will be slightly different if you choose begin. Okay? So let's see what we've got. And I start at the bottom. I know I've been telling you this already, but a compounding periods a year, I've got 12 because it's monthly. Payments a year. Maybe I need to help you out with that one because some of you are not sure what to do with it. Is it the same as CY? What is it? Ask yourself, are there any regular payments being made, like any regular contributions here? And the answer is no. So you can automatically say that this is 0. If this is 0, then these two are going to be the same. Okay? So I'll say this, and I'll make a note here. PY is equal to CY, comma, since PMT is 0. How's that? So if PMT is 0, these are automatically set to be the same. Now, future value, present value. Do we have our future value? We actually do. It's the 15,000 that we'd like to have in the future, right? You want, in this case, Leonard wants $15,000 to buy this car. So it's going to be 15,000 here. Positive or negative? You're giving it to the bank. In the future, once it's done, you're going to get this money. You're going to get it. So it's going to be positive here. Present value is the amount that you deposit, the larger amount. So that's going to be negative 10,000. Okay. Interest rate is 2.58. That one is usually the easiest one to enter. And so what's the only thing left to solve for? It's N. Okay, we're going to put a dot there. That's what we're going to solve for. So let's enter this into our calculator and solve it. Apps. Right? So for now, I'm going to put a 0 in the N. Like in for N, you cannot leave it blank. You have to enter something or else it will not let you move on. Negative 10,000. And then 15,000. PY and CY, they're the same. What is N? Do you remember what N is? PY times years, right? Yeah, that's how you find it. So the time is in there, but we can't just tell for sure right off the top. So we're going to go alpha, enter. We're going to solve for it. And we're not going to round just yet. And actually, it stops. I don't have more decimals there. That's it. In this case, it represents, n represents the number of compounding periods over the life of investment. Hope you can see that. N represents a number of compounding periods because PY is the same thing as CY, right? It represents the number of compounding periods over the life of the investment. So as long as it took you to go from 10,000 to 15,000, right? It took you 188.79 compounding periods. But that's not time, okay? Because N is years times PY. And so if you want years, you got to divide both sides by PY. And here's going to be another formula for you. Years is always going to be found by going N divided by the number of payments per year. Add this to, like I would put this right next to my TVM solver section on my study sheet. Okay? I would highlight this even because some of you might not get to your study sheet until later. But if you want time, like how long did it take you in years, you will have to solve for N and divide it by PY to get your time in years. That's just how it goes, okay? So years, in this case, will be 188.79108 divided by PY is 12. Yeah. And that gives you 15.73 years. So it'll take about 15, almost 16 years to make this happen. That's a long time. I think by then, you're going to want your car sooner than that, I'm sure. Okay. I will also ask you to highlight this box. Right now, I'm not going to make too much reference to it, but if the question asks how long, N can be stated as a decimal, okay? It could be. Or time. If question asks for the number of payments or the age of a person, you need to round up. So let's do a mental exercise. So you don't, I can't fill this up even more, but let's say Leonard was 20 years old when he put the money in, the 10 grand. 20 years old. How old will Leonard be when this is all done? You can say either 35 or 36 years of age, but you cannot say 35.73 years old. You know what I mean? So when it's an age, if they ever do that to you, you just got to make sure you answer accordingly. Then you round, okay? Or in what year will he be done? If it says it starts in the year 2000, 15.73 years go by, you would say in the year 2015 or 2016, right? So you got to watch out for that. In this case, it just asks for how long. Then it's okay to state it as a decimal. Okay, so here's another what if. Okay, what if? After doing the calculation in A, Leonard realizes that it will take way too long. Since he gets paid bi-weekly, watch this, he sets up automatic deposits, right? You set up automatic deposits of $50 every 2 weeks. How long in years will it take to save up the $15,000 in this case? Okay, so TVM solver again. NI, PV, PMT, PY, CY. Compounding periods per year. We're assuming it's the same investment, the same bank, okay? That's an assumption we're making. So we're still compounding 12 times a year, because we were told earlier in A, it's a monthly compounding situation. Now, payments per year. What is that going to be if it's bi-weekly? Do you have that on your study sheet? 26, right? Bi-weekly, okay? 26. Future value is the 15,000 we want. Payment, is this going to be zero? It's not going to be zero. In this case, we make $50 payments every 2 weeks. So we're going to go minus 50. Leaves you, right? You give it to the bank. Present value, we're still going to start with the $10,000. Right? We're going to say, bank, I want to save up money, okay? Here's 10 grand, and then set up a $50 deposit every 2 weeks on top of that, right? So there's a deposit, and this is bi-weekly deposits. Interest is still the same, 2.58. And now we're going to solve for N, which has the time in it. Okay, does it make sense that this is negative 10,000, guys? Does that make sense? If it doesn't make sense, I'm going to tell you one more time. It's because you're giving the money to the bank for now. So when the money leaves you, it's negative. The $50 every 2 weeks is also leaving you. And then at the end, you're going to get 15,000 back. So that's when it's positive. Okay? So let's enter that into our calculators and see what we get now. Apps, enter. I'm going to go change N to 0 for now. I'm leaving that the same. I'm changing that to negative 50. I'm changing PY to 26, but watch out. As soon as you hit enter, it changes CY to 26 also. You don't want that, okay? You want it to stay at 12. Then you go all the way to the end, alpha, enter, and there it is. It's 80.2144. For now, I'm going to write down all of it. It's not money, so technically you could round it in more than 2 decimals. But that's not going to answer how long in years. If you want years, you must go N divided by PY. If you want the time in years. And we get 80.2144 divided by, what are my payments per year? 26 years. That divided by 26. And that will give you 3.09 years. So now you will accumulate that amount in 3 years. Okay? I will make a note here. Note. N represents the number of payments, deposits, I should say. I'll use deposits in this case. When it's loans, we're going to use the number of deposits over life of investment. Okay? N is always associated with PY. So it's the number of deposits over the life of the investment. Approximately 80 or 81 deposits. That's not what this question is asking for. It's asking for the time in years. So this is good. Okay? But if they asked how many deposits will it take to reach the goal, it's between 80 or 81. Okay? So this is an alternate scenario that I'm presenting to you just in case. And we're talking half a mark, guys. We're talking half a mark. So it's not a big deal if you get that wrong, but if you want the full marks, then you got to watch out for that. All right, let's ask ourselves this question. How much interest was earned in A as well as in B? Determine the rate of return in each scenario. So to find interest earned, how can we figure out how much interest we've earned? What can we use? What's one option? Not all at once, guys. What's one option to figure out how much interest we've earned? If you go back, you can even go back to your notes. There was the sum of interest. Do you remember that function, the sum of interest? Yeah? I'm not just talking to myself, right? You can use that one, or you can use a formula, right? I gave you a formula as well. In this case, you cannot use the sum of interest function. Why not? Because n is not a full number. It's not a whole number, I should say. So we cannot use sum of interest in this case. We must use the formula. So let's figure out the formulas here. I'm going to write it down. Interest is future value minus present value minus n times whatever the payment was. Those are the formulas. So for A, that first investment, what's my future value? It's 15,000 minus the present value, which is 10,000, minus, this is just going to be 0, right? Because payment is 0, but you can go 188.79 something times 0. That is just going to be 0 altogether, so we don't even need to consider that. So the interest earned under the first one is $5,000. For B, if I use the same formula, it's future value minus present value minus 80.2144 times payment. Payment is $50. Like my regular PMT, right? That's 15,000 minus 10,000 minus, I'm going to figure this out. If you multiply these two, you get $4,010.72. and then you go 15 minus minus, you subtract them both, you earned $989.28. Why is it that you earn less interest in the second investment? Why is that? You earned more in the first one, but less in the second one. Isn't it like you put in money? Shouldn't you be saving more? You putting in money sped up the process. It's really sped up. It only took you 3 years, so there wasn't enough time to accumulate the interest. Okay? The first investment, how long did it take you? 15.73 years. So your money was sitting there for a long time to accumulate the $5,000, okay? So keep that in mind. I'll do the rate of return down here in this bottom one. How much was invested in each scenario? What do we call this? We call this principal. This is your money invested. Okay. So when it comes to in an investing situation, the principal is the money. It's like your money that you've put in. In A, we've put in the principal is simply $10,000. In A, you just put in 10 grand, that's it. In B, how much did you put in out of your own money in B? Principal. You put in $10,000 plus you've put in 80.2144 payments of $50. And we already know what that is. That's 4,010.72 cents. So you put in 14,010.72 cents. Underline that. And under A, you only put in 10,000 out of your own money. What is the rate of return for the first one? Rate of return is going to be the interest you've earned divided by the principal that you've invested times 100. And you get 50% rate of return for that first investment. It's a little tight here, but rate of return for the second investment is 989.28. It's the interest that you've earned, right? Right here. Divided by 14,010.72 cents times 100. And that answer is 7.06%. So investment A, in terms of rate of return, investment A has done much better. Okay. I'm going to cut this here. This is right. This is A. This is B. I'm gonna add a formula for you guys. Can I just, I'm going to use a red pen for this one. Can't use sum of interest since n is a decimal. That's a big reason why I had to use the formulas that I gave you. And I'm going to ask you to, we're going to go to 35 for a little bit. I'm just going to add the formula for principal. Can you go to 35 and just write down principal is PV plus N times PNT. Add that to page 35, please. As well as years is going to be N divided by PY. These are two very, very important formulas that you need to have as well. Okay, so I will ask you to work a little bit on these questions. So my first goal is, remember, read the question, know where to put the numbers in the TVM solver, okay? What goes where? Do I get the sign right? Solve for the one unknown. The rest that involves the formulas, that one we can work with as we go along, okay? Right now it's the first and foremost, do you know how to do the TVM solver part? So can we go back to 38 now? And let's read this together, and then you'll set it up yourself. You actually fill out the TVM solver. Okay, so Trisha is 25. She would like to retire at the age of 60, which is 5 years earlier than usual. She does not have a lot of money, but she's able to make monthly deposits of $275. She goes to her bank, opens up an RRSP, that's a registered retirement savings plan, to start contributing and save for retirement. The bank offers a 3.8% rate, compounded semi-annually. So all of these things I want you to figure out yourselves. So she's 25 when she opens, okay? Wants to retire at 60. But it says here, Trisha turns 35 and stops making contributions as she has a family and purchased a home. How much money will she have accumulated at this point? Okay, so that's the one, that's the first question we're gonna seek to answer here. How much has she accumulated at this point? So we're gonna come over here. And there's no such thing as just getting this after a lesson or two. It's a constant, like, oh, what's this scenario asking me to do? Okay, so I'm going to pause here, and you're going to fill in everything except for one, right? So there should be one blank for you here, but I want you to fill in the rest based on the scenario. Use a pencil. If you're wrong, big deal. Or just erase it, okay? But I want you to actually try and pretend like I'm asking you a question right now on a little quiz. Would you be able to fill this in based on that information? All right, guys? Go. So just make sure you follow along. I know this journey is different for everybody. Okay, just give it a try, okay? In this case, compounding periods, it says compounded semi-annually, so it's 2. In this case, it does tell me that we're making monthly deposits, so PY is 12. Future value is what I want to find out. Payment, we're making deposits of $275 every month. There is no mention of one large sum to start off with. So don't make anything with the payment, okay, guys? The deposits should not find their way into the PV. Interest rate is 3.8. This, it's a little confusing because of the 60, but it's going from 25 to 35, so it's 10 years, right? So 35 minus 25, that's 10 years. This is for your notes in the future if you look it up, right? So it's 10 times PY, so that's 120. So you enter all of that. You could have already solved for the total interest if you were done everything else, but here we go. Payment is that, 12 and 2. I go figure out the future value, and it is 40,006.97 cents. So if you want your answer to be there, make sure you have a dollar sign if a dollar sign is needed, okay? That's how much money was accumulated. Determine the total interest earned. Total interest, you've got options. I like this one. If I don't have to use a formula, I will try to avoid a formula. And it's basically from the very first one to the very last one, which is determined by n. N is a whole number, so you can use that function to figure out how much interest you've earned over the entire 10 years. So I'm going to grab my calculator, and this is important to get this right. You quit TVM. You got to go to your home screen, and then you go Apps, Finance, and it's way at the bottom, that one right there, and you feed it 1,120, and there it is. It's 7,006.97 cents. This is how much interest you've earned over the entire 10 years. Okay? Or, if you like the formula, if you can't get away from it, it's PV minus future value minus N times PMT. Future value is 40,006.97 cents minus future value, which is 0, minus, you're making 120 payments of 275. So this would be 40,006.97 minus 120 times 275. That's 33,000. This is how much money you've put in from your own money, okay? And you end up with the same answer, 7,006.97 cents. These answers are sometimes slightly off, but you will not lose marks as long as you show us the work. Okay, if you use sum of interest or if you use the formula, either one gets you there. Okay? All right. Now, she decides to keep the money accumulated to this point, right? To this point right here, to earn interest until she retires. Calculate how much money she will have at retirement. Determine the total interest earned. So, what you need to know is here, from 35 to 60, right? So we're now looking at from 35 to 60, what happens there. So we're going to go 60 minus 35. That's 25 years that we're going to be considering. I want you to do the same thing again. You do this, okay? N-I, P-V, P-M-T. Oh, sorry, I mixed this up. P-Y, C-Y. Don't mix them up, please. So, hold on. Before you fill this in, are there any contributions still happening, any deposits? Like for this part, are there any like regular deposits happening here? Let's read A real quick. Trisha turns 35 and stops making contributions. Maybe use a different color just to highlight that one. So we're stopping that. We're no longer making regular contributions. Sorry, I highlighted that and I moved away the camera. There it is. That is important. That statement right there is like we no longer make $275 a month contributions. We don't do that anymore. Okay? As long as you follow along, I can do this with you because I know it's somewhat challenging to wrap your head around it, but the compounding periods stay the same. There are no more payments now. Okay? No more payments. So you go PY and CY, you set them to be the same. Okay? Future value is what we want to figure out. What is my present value, folks? It's that money that you have, right? Up to 35, you have that. And now you just want to put it in there and let it grow. Okay? So we take this money and we plug that into our present value. So we're going to go what? Is it leaving you? Technically, yes. If you put that, it's almost like you got to imagine you're like, here, bank, keep the money, keep saving. I want to keep saving. So you put that money in here, into your present value. Same interest rate. And this time it's 25 years times whatever PY is. What is PY? It's 2 in this case. And that would be 50. So 50 compounding periods are going to go by until you retire. Let's figure out what the future value is here. Oops, I'm one too many zeros. I put a 0 on future value for now because I'm going to solve it in a bit. So we go alpha, enter, and there it is. 102,528 and 56 cents. Determine the total interest earned. I'm going to go from 1 to 50 and get an answer. You grab your calculator, quit this screen. Watch this though. I have sum of interest on my home screen. If I go up a couple of lines, it's still there. I'm just going to hit enter and change that to 50. Like that. So you've earned 62,521 and 59 cents in interest. Interest earned. And some of the what ifs you could have done, right? Some of the what ifs you could do is, hey, what if my interest rate went up to 7%? How much money would I have in that case? If this is 7%, how much money would I have? Right? Those are some of the questions I might ask you. So maybe don't change it, but I will do that here. What if I change that to 7% and then figure out how much money I would have? And all of a sudden, right, you're in 223,000, right? What if I change this to 10%? Right, I can go and do alpha, enter. You would have almost 500,000, right? So this is a really good tool. Or what if I kept this at 3.8%, but I continue to put in $50 every month. So I would have to change that to 12. And I would have to change this to 25 times 12, right? And then you figure out how much money would I have in the future? 127,000, right? So there's a lot of ways to ask what if you make changes to this. Okay? One more here. If Trisha decided to keep the money in the RSP until 65 instead of 60, how much more would she have available? How much more would she have available? Let's do the TVM solver here. Everything stays, right? 2, 2, we're figuring out the future value, no payments, present value is going to be, we're still going to start off with a 40,000. Interest rate still stays at 3.8. But now we're going from 35 to 65. Okay? That would be 30 years that we're considering now. So we need to change this to 30 times 2. That'll get us to 60. So for you, there's not a whole lot of change on your TVM solver. All right, this is 60, 0, this is 0 for now, this stays 2 and 2. You figure out your future value, and there it is, 123,761.82. Sorry for you back there, it's harder to see. This doesn't answer though how much more. So we're going to go 123,761.82 minus what we had on the previous scenario. Right, you subtract. And you get 21,233.26 more. Okay, just letting it sit there for 5 more years gave you another $21,000. How much interest earned? Sum of interest in this scenario, we're going to go from 1 to 60. If you do that, I'm just going to tell you what the answer is in this case. Your interest earned here is that. Earlier at 62. Now it's 83,000. I'm going to scrap this last one here. Just cross that out. It's too much. There's too much going on here already as it is. So this is all I would want you to be able to do at this point. All right. I want you to go to page 39 and try that one right now. Make sure you use a pencil, okay? Before you do anything else, you first fill this in, okay? Read the question and see if you can fill that in without without much help. If you need help, that's fine. Enough of you have finished this. So compounded, it's compounded quarterly. In this case, there are regular deposits, so it's weekly, so that's 52. Future value is what we want to know, right? The value of the investment in 25 years. We're making $55 deposits, and it also tells us that there's an initial deposit of $600, right? So you start off with a sum, and then you add to it. And this is 4.1. It's over 25 years. Just in case I didn't tell you that, the value of the investment at maturity, you would have had to figure it out by going 45 is when you start and 70 is when you retire, right? So then you just subtract and you get your 25 years there. So it's 25 times 52, and that is 1,300, I believe, yeah. And yeah, please show the negatives here as you're entering. Whenever you enter, the solution doesn't have to have a sign, but if you do this right, you get 125, 896, 52. That is your answer. That answers the question. So if you just want to leave it like that, circle it, you're good to go. Okay? Out of the future value, how much of it is interest? How much of it is principal? Okay? I will figure out the interest. I'm going to go from 1 to 1,300. And if you do that, you get 53,796 and 52 cents. So what am I saying with this? Out of that investment here that you have now, 53,000 of that is interest that was earned. The rest is principal. The rest is money you put in. Okay? So to figure out principal, you can go 125, 896, 52 minus this amount. That's one way of doing it, by the way. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Camera, come on. Anyways, that's why AI is going to take over my job, because it's so much better than me. This minus that, sorry about that. I subtract the interest, and I get 72,100 is principal. So this is principal, that is interest. If you want to figure out principal is PV plus N times PMT, like what you've put in at the beginning, which is $600, plus you made 1,300 contributions of $55. If you do this right, you also get 72,100. So it's up to you how you want to do it. But this is how much you've put in, and that is the interest that you've earned. And those combined make up your future value. Okay? It's going to be too tight, so I'm going to leave this one. I need to do this one next class. This one is actually very cool, because you ask yourself, okay, if I retire at 70 and I want to take out $500 a month, how long do I have until I run out of money? Okay? That is actually the one I really want you to know. So we'll wait with that. So I will say this. I have a feeling that some of you still have some questions to complete. So pages 40 to 47 still up for grabs. So if there were some that you weren't able to do, maybe try them again. Okay? Maybe try them again.